There are some common data engineering tasks that are involved in building your lakehouse or data warehouse solution. On a high level, I would divide into two groups. That's data movement tasks and the data transformation tasks. So data movement tasks are needed for you to bring your data sources from either on-premise sources or different cloud services into central location. So that's your data lake. Um, and then you need to take care of transformations. In the last video dedicated, which was introductory video for Microsoft Fabric's Dataflow Gen2, we learned how to create simple pipelines that would bring your data from one location to another location. We also learned how to navigate Dataflow's user interface. In today's session, as well as in few next session, we are going to talk about transformations. Uh, Microsoft broadly divides transformations, data flow transformations into three categories. That's single table transformations. Examples could be filtering or deduplicating or maybe selecting or excluding certain columns. And then there are transformations that require multiple tables. For example, you can join tables together. Finally, there are column level transformations. For example, you may want to apply certain formulas to create new columns. Today, we're going to cover single table transformations. This video relies on the knowledge obtained in the previous video. So if you haven't seen that, I would recommend to pause this and take a look at that video. And with that introduction, let's jump into the topic. Here's the topics that we're going to cover in today's episode. So I'll start by explaining how to navigate transformation history, how to revert certain transformations and take a look at the previous shape of the data. So this is good when you exploring transformations and you want to experiment and you want to see before and after picture of your transformations. Then we'll take a close look at select columns transformations, which allow you to select or exclude certain columns from your table. Then we'll take a look at filters. There are different types of filters. So you can filter by raw numbers and by value. So we'll take a look at each type of filters. And then filters can also be basic or advanced. So we'll examine each filter type. Finally, we will take a look at filtering by data flow parameters. So that is great feature that allows you to apply filters to multiple queries simultaneously. Next, we are going to discuss aggregations. Aggregations can be row aggregations or column aggregations. Then we'll also take a look at fuzzy grouping, which is a great tool when you have some deviations in your source data. Next, we're going to cover pivoting and unpivoting transformations. And the final transformation that we're going to cover is removing duplicates. Let's jump into that. All right, I am in Dataflow that we created in the last video, where I added two queries from Adventure Works database. I'm going to add another table. So this time is sales order detail table. I can do it by navigating Get Data menu. But I'm gonna use quicker way. So I will just duplicate one of these tables and just change some settings. So click here, right click, and select duplicate, which will add a new query here. Then all I need is just to select the navigation button, navigation step, and change my table name. And then I will also need to change my query name so that I could distinguish between these two queries. Before proceeding, let me share one quick trick that I will often use during this video to be able to apply some transformation and roll back them. So this is query settings panel, which lists all my transformations. I can go back in time and see what was my data shape at certain points. So let me demonstrate that on this query, which has more steps. So this is, if I click on last step, this is how my data looks like after applying all the transformations. But I can go back and see what was my original data shape. So I can click here, and now I see my table without any transformations. I can also remove any transformations, which will be equal to undoing my transformation. So I can do it from here by clicking here. So for now, I'll just leave my transformation as is. And let's start exploring our first transformation, which is select columns. This is one of the most common transformations. So, and there are multiple ways of achieving that. So one easy way of doing that is doing it from the data panel from here. So you can choose any column or multiple columns and right click and choose remove columns button. Right now it has been added to in the middle of my query because that's where my cursor was. But normally you would add it at the end. So in this case, it doesn't matter. The alternative way of selecting your columns is you by selecting columns and then selecting remove other columns, which will eliminate all other columns except the ones you have selected. So let me revert by transformation. Now let's explore filtering feature in Dataflow. Filtering can be applied on row numbers based or on column values based. So let me first describe row numbering filters. So this entire section is uh, has commands related to filtering. So you can see we have keep rows commands. So where you can say keep top rows, keep bottom rows, etc. And this button is similar except it says remove top rows or top bottoms. So let's say I want to remove my top first rows in my files. So I'll choose remove top rows and I will specify how many rows I want to remove. So let's say 5 and click OK, and my first 5 rows are gone. So this feature is particularly useful if you are handling some flat files where sometimes you would find your headers to be located in somewhere in the middle. Um, now let's talk about value-based filters. So that can be done from here, from command bar, or you can apply it from here. So let me first use this command bar option. So use filter, and here I have two modes, so basic and advanced. So basic mode allows you to filter on pre-selected columns. So in this case, it's sales order ID that I have selected before opening this. And then from here, you have to select your comparison operator. So you can either select equals, greater, less, etc. And then you can here you have option value or parameter. I will come back to parameter option a little later, but for now let's select value. So here in value section, it will present you with the values that are part of this column already. So you can select one of these and then proceed to adding another condition um, where you can select uh, where you can add extra conditions for that particular column. Now let's take a look at advanced option. With advanced option, you can select columns to which you to apply your filters. So let's say I want my shipping address ID equals. So and then you have to specify comparison operator. So equals to say this. And then you can add extra conditions here. So let's say I want my customer ID equals to this. You can continue adding more conditions by using add clause button. One thing to note here is that while you are adding these conditions, you tie them together with and or all conditions here. So this will tell you whether or not you want to apply these all conditions together. So in other words, if all conditions are mandatory, or any of these conditions will make the rows survive. So pay attention to this. So I'll hit OK, and that will apply filter to my data set. So in this case, there were no rows complying with this. And I'm gonna revert this filter. Sometimes you want to apply same filter to multiple queries at once. So for example, in this case, I have customer and sales order tables, both of them having customer ID columns. So let's say I want to apply filters to limit them to this particular customer. Uh, Parameters are great way of doing that. So let me first create my parameter here. I'll name it like this. And here I have to select multiple options. So first of all, I can specify my data type. I can leave it any, so which will not limit to any data types, or I can select one of concrete data types from here. And then I have to select either free text option, which any value option represents, or I can use one of these existing options. But let me start with any value option, which is the simplest, and I'll provide parameter name, and I'll provide one of the existing customer names, IDs here. Now let's apply this parameter-based filter to my sales order header table. So I'll open filter rows, navigate to advanced, select my customer ID, and here I can open values box, and instead of using enter value as previously, I'll use select parameter option. And here I can select the parameter that I have created earlier. I'll hit OK. Now, a few things changed here. The first, you can see that my query is now being fed by this parameter. So I have dependency built here. So it basically it became a one large step in this mini data flow. So filtering has been applied to my headers table. So let's do the same for customer table now. So now my customer table has also had been filtered. So you can see how easy it is to apply same filter criteria to multiple queries. Now let's explore a slightly different scenario. Um, let's say I want to the customer IDs that I am interested in filtering in change from time to time. So in that case, I can use different type of parameters. So let me head to manage parameters window. And instead of specifying single customer ID value, I can choose list of values from suggested values box and provide more than one value. So I'll say this is one customer and I'll provide another customer. I can choose one of these values at a time. So let's say right now I am interested in this customer ID. So I can choose um, this customer ID and hit OK. And this filter will be instantly applied to both queries. Now let's consider a scenario where I am interested in filtering a few customer IDs at once. So let me head to parameters window and add new parameter here. I'll use new button here. I'll name it customer list. So this parameter is going to be list type of parameter. So I'll choose from type window, I'll choose list here and I'll type my customer IDs. Now, to use list type of parameters, you need to have different filtering condition. So I'm gonna go to my customer filter and change my filtering operator here. So I'll go to customer ID, and instead of equals condition, I'm gonna use in condition. And I'll change my parameter to customer list parameter. Hit OK. Now my customer table brings two values. Now let's explore grouping and aggregations features of Dataflow. So this feature allows you to group based on certain column, a certain or list of columns, and then either count or apply certain aggregations. So for example, I have address table here. So within address table, I have data from different cities and the countries. Let's say I am interested to know how many rows we have for each country. So I'm going to select my table and head to group by command. And here, the first thing I need to do is just select my grouping criteria. So let's say I'm going to select country region. And here I can specify aggregation operation. So we have number of available aggregations. So count row is one of the simplest probably. So this few that you can see on the count rows are classified row aggregations, which do not require any column uh, information. And there are some aggregations that require column. So some, for example, require column on which to base your aggregations. So let me select count rows and hit OK. And that will give me a number of rows per country. Now let's take a look at one column-based aggregation. So I'm going to select sales order header table. And if I scroll to the right, I have due date. Let's say I want to group my data by due date and get totals of my tax amount column. I'm going to head to group by command. And from here, I'm going to select due date as a grouping. And we'll come here and select sum. Then I will select my tax amount. And I can also change my name for this new column. So I'm going to say total taxes and hit OK. And that gives me total tax by due dates. Now let's take a look at advanced grouping and aggregation feature. For that, I'm going to select my address table here. Let me revert my last aggregation, and I'll head to group by and switch to advanced from here. So as you can see, we have more than one grouping available here. So I'll start with country region and add city-based aggregate grouping. So now I have two levels of grouping. And here I can specify more than one aggregations. So let's say in addition to row count, I want to add distinct values, number of distinct values, and I can select which column I want to get my distinct values from. So let's say I want to get distinct values by address type. And I'll name this column as OK. Now this gives me grouping by country and city, and then I have these two aggregations. Before I wrap up aggregation topic, let me share one cool feature called fuzzy grouping. So that's a feature which allows to you group based on similarities in the column. So I changed certain rows within address table. So specifically, I changed city column and introduce certain variation for Toronto word. So let me add filters to see it easier. I'll put filter based on all the words starting with Tor keyword. As you can see, we have 4 variations of Toronto word. So I'm going to go back to my aggregations, aggregation settings, and set this setting which says use fuzzy grouping. Okay, now that this grouping has been applied, I'll um, select my filtered rows again and see how my result has changed. So as you can see, all my rows with similar words have been grouped under Toronto. And so this word has been selected because it's most frequent value within the column. So this feature could be very helpful on cleaning some noisy data sources. All right, let's move on to pivot and unpivot transformations. Pivot transformations are good when you have a column with repetitive values and you want to aggregate these values and then move them horizontally. So basically pivot them in the horizontal shape. So before we continue, let me remove the filters that I applied here. And I'm going to remove the distinct address column. I'll right click and say remove columns. So I'm going to select this column and move to find pivot column transformation on the transform. And here we have to select value column, which in this case is going to be count. So this column will not be aggregated in basic transformation. It will just be moved on the different cities. So as you can see, for United States, we have each city, and under each city we have count listed here. Now let's take a look at advanced pivoting option. I'm gonna open my pivot transformation settings and change to advanced tab. So here I can select value column, but I can also apply certain transformations. So I can say, for example, pick maximum of the available values or take a summary of all the values within this column. I'm going to select sum and hit OK. Now, if I want to unpivot this table, all I need to do is just to select columns that are part of pivoting and click on pivot columns. And now my data is in previous shape. The final transformation that I'm going to cover today is removing duplicates transactions. Before I proceed, let me quickly take a look at the address table and remove some of the transformation I added recently. So I'll remove all the grouping and aggregation transformations. And sort my rows on city column. I'll click here and we'll sort ascending the order. Okay, now I want to remove all the columns except cities, province, and the country. I'm going to select these three and right click and say remove other columns. As you can see in the resultant data set, we have duplicates. So to remove duplicates, I'm going to select these columns. So in this case, we have exact duplicates in 3 columns. I'm going to select all of them. Navigate to remove rows command, and under that find remove duplicates. And that removes all my duplicates. That concludes today's discussion. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in future videos.